Okay, so for the final question here from Game 4, Prep Test 74, we have everyone's favorite question type, which is substitution questions. All right, so in this case, we're trying to sub in a rule that's going to have the same effect as Rule 4 here. Okay, so Rule 4 is conditional. So we're looking for something that is going to be logically equivalent to this. One thing that I would note is that F and H are logically equivalent to one another because they're always together. So if we wanted to sub in F instead of H, that would be fine. If we want to sub in the contrapositive for the original conditional statement, also fine. Those are logically equivalent to one another. They're derived from each other, right? So if we start out with the contrapositive of the contrapositive would just be the original statement, right? We just flip and negate and we'd be right back at square one. So we also have some words that we know are logically equivalent in terms of being conditional indicator words, right? So we have words that indicate sufficiency, words that indicate a necessary condition, words that indicate that we need to negate the sufficient condition or negate the necessary condition. And so we could possibly find some helpful logically equivalent indicator words. Right, so substitution questions are all about that. They're all about logical equivalency. And so I actually do find that when you have conditional indicator words and you have conditional statements rather in your substitution question that you're trying to substitute, those can sometimes be a little bit easier than your typical substitution question. But I guess that's sort of a personal preference thing, because it all has to do with your comfort level when it comes to conditional reasoning. Okay, so let's just go through the answer choices one by one and see where they are the same as the original statement, where they differ. So the first one, A, starts off if K is assigned to S. Now that looks good because that would fall under the umbrella of the original trigger, right? If K is assigned to S, then Rule 4 is triggered. The other thing that's interesting about that is that K cannot actually be out. So the only time that this rule is going to be triggered is where K is assigned to S. So yeah, kind of an interesting situation there. And yeah, the problem, of course, is that the reason that K can't be out is because of the consequences of K being out as a result of this rule. So that, if you want a reminder of why K can't be out, you can look at the video for question 20. But the reason K can't be out is because of this rule. So we can't actually use this rule to kind of reinforce it. It's sort of circular reasoning, right? So A is out for that reason. Okay. Also, A doesn't work because the consequence, so when they say then H and M cannot both be assigned to that ceremony, if I were to write that out, H and M cannot both be assigned to S, that would still leave open the possibility that one of them is. So it would be H is not assigned to S or M is not assigned to S. And we also know in this game that H not being assigned to S is not, well, for H, sorry, it is equivalent to H being assigned to T because H cannot be out. But for M, it's not equivalent to that because M could still be out. So here we have still too many options open that weren't allowed under the original condition. So A is out, not the same. B involves L. L is kind of tied to M through Rule 2, but we don't have F or H involved. So F is equivalent to H because they're always together, but neither of them are involved in this rule, so I mean that's just not going to work. We're not going to be able to include them, and we need to make this rule logically equivalent to the original. C uses the word unless. So unless is equivalent to if not, right? So that's handy. We possibly have just a different conditional indicator word being used. So if K is not assigned to T, then both F and M must be assigned to T. So I like that. So what they've done here is rather than saying if not, they've said unless. And rather than talking about H, they've talked about F, but they're just tied to one another. So C is actually the correct answer. I can see that that is logically equivalent. So C must be correct. Let's look at why D and E are wrong. D starts out the same way, but then it talks about H and L not being assigned to the same ceremony. But again, we're not really going to be able to equate that because what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, well, if H and L are not assigned to the same ceremony, then H and M must be assigned to the same ceremony. But it's actually possible that both L and M are just out, and we're not even dealing with them, right? So it's this thing of, this isn't a straight up in and out game. It's actually got an added element to it, an added complication. So it's an in-out game, but the in groups are split again. So we actually have 3 groups here. E, all right, so this one I think is trying to mimic the contrapositive, but it doesn't quite do that job. So unless either H or M is assigned to T, K must be assigned to T. Okay, so if we don't have either H or M, okay, if not H or M assigned to T, okay, then K is assigned to T. Now, it's probably not immediately obvious, but H is not assigned to T or M is not assigned to T isn't the same as unless either H or M is assigned to T. So actually, the negation here, this not, has to be applied to every element within these brackets here. And so what we would actually get is if H isn't assigned to T and M isn't assigned, then K must be assigned to that ceremony. So small difference there, but it matters. So E is not, in fact, a logical equivalent to the contrapositive. All right. Okay, so that's it for Game 4, Prep Test 74. Please let me know if you have any further questions about it, or if you'd like any clarification on any of the explanation that I've given so far. I know I've kind of taken a bit of a winding route through this game, but I do hope that it's helpful ultimately to see that thought process. Okay, have a good one.